Hi, my name is JJ from Paranormal Talks, paranormaltalks.com. Now, you're probably familiar with us and our YouTube channel where we have dozens and dozens and dozens of numerology readings for people across their name and across their life paths. But Paranormal Talks wants to focus more on having speakers who can actually educate you as far as the world, the paranormal, and what's coming up for you. Therefore, we have speakers that will be showing you going forward. And one of the speakers we have here today is Mr. Greg Caton. We'll be having several interviews from Mr. Greg Caton since he's such a prolific author and a highly researched and intelligent healer. So let me introduce you to Greg Caton. Just a quick look. Here is his website, Greg Caton. You can see 4 of his books that are prominently showed. But let me tell you a bit more about him. Mr. Greg Caton is a celebrated herbalist who is best known for popularizing the ancient practice of escharotic medicine and the use of what is commonly called black salve. As a result of his work, black salves are now used internationally to treat both internal and external cancers at low cost and with a high rate of success. He is also the author of 6 books, which includes his latest, appropriately entitled Black Salve. He joins us today from his home at 10,000 feet in the Andes Mountains of Ecuador. So good afternoon, Greg. So this talk, we will be discussing his Ayahuasca vision quest. Now, in November of 2011, author Greg Caton received the first in a series of astonishing prophetic communications concerning game-changing end times events that occurred during his vision quest in 2012. They're still true today as they were then. So he will discuss his vision quests and how they can help you as we go through this turbulent awakening here in our world. So Mr. Greg Caton, take it away, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry about the commotion in the back. It happens whenever we have uninvited guests come to our property. Okay, well, in talking initially about the 2012 book, it's probably important to kind of give a little bit of a background on it, because a lot of your audience may not even know what Hayahuasca is. Would you say that many of them are acquainted with entheogenics or not?
Probably not that much.
Okay, I'll tell you the approach that I'm going to take on this. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm going to... Okay, this is the point I'm going to start at in discussing about this. We have this idea in the West that knowledge is related to education, that you can say that you're an erudite or you can say that you're a knowledgeable person because you've acquired a good degree of facts or working knowledge, and most of this is acquired from other people, from books. And the idea was really kind of explored in depth by Rene Descartes, because all school children, at least when I went to school, knew about this idea. I think, therefore I am. He tried to strip away all the layers of disinformation that existed even in his time 400 or 500 years ago, to get down to the basics of what can I really know for sure? What can I say that I know? Because today, the way it is today, if you live in the West and you say that you're an educated person or that you're knowledgeable, okay, all you're really saying is that you are capable of regurgitating things that you have never occurred on your own that other people have told you. You've got book knowledge.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because this is too important a topic to kind of gloss over and not treat it properly. This is a book that I wrote. This is the second to last. It's called Living on the Precipice. And this is something I'm going to quote, which I think is pretty important. And then I'm going to segue into what this all means and how you can actually come to a better idea of the world we live in and where we're headed, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And what I make reference to in this book, it's on page 181, if anyone were to actually have the book, is I actually quote from the late Neil Postman, who wrote a book called Technopoly. And this is very, very important for people to understand your culture, because most people who live in the West, whether they live in the United States or France or Germany, they have no idea of the fundamental nature of the culture they were born into. So I'm going to read this real quick, and then we're going to talk about it. And then I'm going to talk into the importance of entheogenics and how the whole idea of what knowledge is. What is knowledge? What does it mean when you say you're knowledgeable about something? It's very different here among the shamans and so forth in the Amazon than it is in the West. And that's because if you don't understand that, you won't understand the importance of this book that I wrote 7 years ago. Okay. The story, okay, Neil Postman opens his work Technopoly by describing a story from the Phaedrus concerning the nature of technology. The failure of medical science from its very beginning to the present day is effectively addressed. To even address the symbol of disorder becomes clear in Postman's description of the issue of man's relation to his technology. Of course, technology is a branch of knowledge.
Yes.
The story, as Socrates tells it to his friend Phaedrus, unfolds in the following way. Thamos once entertained the god Thuth, who was the inventor of many things, including number, calculation, geometry, astronomy, and writing. Thus exhibited his inventions to King Thamos, claiming that they should be made widely known and available to Egyptians. Socrates continues. Thamos inquired into the use of each of these, and as Thuth went through them, he expresses approval or disapproval according to as he judged Thus's claim to be well or ill-founded. It would take too long to go through all that Thamos is reported to have said for and against each of Thus's inventions. But when it came to writing, Thuth declared, "Here's an accomplishment, my lord the king, which will improve both the wisdom and the memory of the Egyptians." We could extend that and say the wisdom and the memory of modern people who think they're knowledgeable, who think they actually know something. I have discovered a sure recipe for memory and wisdom. To this Thamos said, Thuth, my paragon of inventors, the discovery of an art is not the best judge of the good or the harm which will accrue to those who practice it. So it is in this for you. You are the god of writing, who out of fondness for your offspring attributed to it quite the opposite of its real function. Those who acquire it will cease to exercise their memory and become forgetful. They will rely on writing to bring things to their remembrance by external signs instead of by their own internal resources. What you have discovered is a receipt for recollection, not for memory. As you for wisdom, your pupils will have the reputation for it without the reality. They will receive a quantity of information without proper instruction, and in consequence be thought very knowledgeable when they are for the most part quite ignorant. Think of all the people in Western University, people who say they've got a degree from Harvard or Yale or Princeton, who think they're knowledgeable because they have a piece of paper, who are really quite breathtakingly stupid. Okay. As for wisdom, your pupils will have the reputation for it without the reality. They will receive a quantity of information without proper instruction, and in consequence be thought very knowledgeable when they are for the most part quite ignorant. And because they are filled with the conceit of wisdom instead of real wisdom, they will be a burden to society. Postman goes on to say that this story from Phaedrus is no less relevant today than it was in the days of Plato. In fact, more so, for we are currently surrounded by throngs of zealous Thuths, one-eyed prophets who see only what new technologies can do and are incapable of imagining what they will undo.
Okay, so what that seems to say is, and we've heard this many times in our public government programming facilities, which we call public schools, and that is they teach us to learn by rote, which eliminates any analysis thinking or creative thinking outside of that rote memorization.
The world is full of people who think they're quite knowledgeable about a great many things, who are actually knowledgeable about nothing. And they understood, the Indigenous understand this. And this is why the importance of entheogens. Here in the Amazon.
So there's no analysis of what they have memorized. There's no creative testing of what they have just memorized. from others' books and teachings?
If they had a certain degree of self-awareness and honesty, they would be able to do as Rene Descartes did several hundred years ago and be able to reduce everything down to its simple form and say to themselves, in all honesty, self-honesty, the truth is, the only thing I know is I think, therefore I am.
Yeah.
And the reason this is important is because there's this idea among the indigenous. This is what I learned. This is what I've learned through all the years I've been here in South America, that you can't say that you own knowledge, that there is a knowledge that's truly yours, unless you are the direct experiencer of it. I met an herbalist, a shaman, I think in 2006, and this guy knew so many. I couldn't believe the knowledge this guy had. We were just walking through the forest. This used for this gets rid of snake bites, this sure cure for prostate cancer, this used for this used for. So I was absolutely amazed. How many, just stop for a minute, stop. How many different species of of medicinal plants are you aware of? He says, it was about 1,400. I said, there's not enough time in a man's life to really master. I know this because I'm an herbalist myself, to really know and master completely the growth patterns, functions, taxonomy, phylology, all of that, of 1,400 different plants. How did you acquire that information in such a short span of time? You're not that old of a man. He said, well, Ayahuasca taught me everything I know. I said, Ayahuasca, the plant spirit? He said, well, yes, she taught me, grandmother, basically abuela, taught me everything that I know. And people who think this is a little far-fetched, it's actually detailed quite well in a book by a man named Jeremy Narby called The Cosmic Serpent. He deals with this very issue in chapter 1 of that book. This really got my attention because I had very early in life read Dr. Richard Maurice's book, Cosmic Consciousness, first published in 1901, that it's actually possible to experience, if you will, a kind of time-space contraction where you acquire a huge amount of knowledge, real knowledge, not crap. Oh, I know this because Professor, I am so knowledgeable because I got 12 years of instructions under the esteemed professor of Princeton, Dr. White, my ass.
Yes.
Okay, that doesn't make you knowledgeable. You're not knowledgeable. You just have read some books and it's somebody else's idea. Somebody you've never met, somebody.
Okay. So hold it a second.
This is an important idea because if without this, you're not even going to understand. You're not even going to understand what my 2012 book's about. If you don't understand that entheogens are about acquiring knowledge directly.
Yes.
It's not because I picked up a book and I read somebody else's regurgitated thoughts. Somebody else sat on the.
Yes. So
somebody else just did a whole lot of writing while there's.
So to summarize, ayahuasca is a herb that can give you access to huge amounts.
Composite of herbs.
What?
It's not an herb.
What is it?
It's a method. It involves one species.
Ayahuasca is a method.
It's not an herb. It's not an herb. It's not an herb.
Okay. I thought
it's a combination of.
So you're not. So what is it?
Let me explain it. Ayahuasca is the combination of a couple herbs that will contain the dimethyltryptamine, the God molecule, however you wish to describe it.
So it's a couple of herbs.
Right. And then it's actually cooked. You cook the you cook the leaves which contain the DMT or the trimethyltryptamine with the vine, Menestroi capi, the actual vine that suppresses the breakdown of the DMT in the stomach, so that you get it properly absorbed into the bloodstream. So it's actually the combination of those two. So it's not a single herb. It's actually a combination of plants. They use here either a plant called, the common names are chacruna or which is more common in Peru or here. That escapes me at the moment. But anyways, you use any one of a couple.
So where did the word ayahuasca as a drug, where did that word come from?
It's an indigenous to here. And ayahuasca, I believe.
Ayahuasca, but ayahuasca is a combination of herbs.
Right, at least two. Sometimes they mix other things with the thing.
Oh, okay. And it gives you a vision quest. So as you were describing this, just to summarize.
Not everyone, but to certain people it does. got a saying here in the Amazon,
Oh,
you don't
yes.
choose you don't choose Hayahuasca,
Ayahuasca.
Hayahuasca chooses you.
Yes, yes. Okay. This is very similar to what I've heard from near-death experiencers, which I
Mm-hmm.
consider the hard way to access this universal knowledge in a mass data dump. So that's
Mm-hmm.
near-death experiencers and out-of-body astral projectors. And there's a third one. It's other flavors of spiritual transformational experiences. But in each one, the consciousness, a near-death experience, an out-of-body astral projection, and some other type of spiritual consciousness projection, all of those releases us from our day-to-day prosaic consciousness and helps us access all of this mass consciousness. So ayahuasca is a tool, is a combination of herbs that can allow us to learn massive amounts of information from the other dimension. That's the point I want to make, because a near-death experience, you learn the same stuff very quickly, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
recommended because it's very painful. I mean, you're killed, you die. So ayahuasca is the
Dangerous.
preferred method. It is the preferred method to enable a spiritual transformational experience. And as you said, ayahuasca, and I'm sure all these other plants, have their own spirits, their own energy, their own personality, so to speak. And certain personalities jive with us and others don't. Just like you meet a stranger or someone on the street or in the office, sometimes you click and it works, and sometimes it does not. So it is true, and the same with foods and herbs like ayahuasca. I wanted to make that point. So as you just said, ayahuasca can provide you with a vision quest to give you access to massive amounts of information that you can learn. But some people, Greg, you have said it doesn't do anything for them. It does not release their consciousness.
No.
They don't access any new information. It's just an annoyance. So can you speak more about that?
Well, I mean, we see this in a lot of human endeavors. You know, there's certain people may go through a certain physical regimen and improve themselves physically, and others may not. So anyways, getting back to the main point, ayahuasca is a combination of a chacruna or a chalipanga, that was the word I couldn't remember a moment ago, chalipanga, with the vine, the ayahuasca vine, yahi, they sometimes call it here yahi, to produce this beverage, that you drink, and it's bitter. It's difficult for some people to tolerate. And as a result of that, you go into an altered state of consciousness. And in this altered state of consciousness, you're able to acquire knowledge. And that's the purpose for which it's used. Now, here in the West, and this is written by a lot of people who kind of with a Western bias have talked about entheogens. And let's define that word. Entheogen is a product that's used in a ceremonial way among the native peoples for the purposes of acquiring real knowledge, not book knowledge, not fake knowledge, not I know something because somebody else told me. That you're just, you're just, as this quote I gave you that taken from Socrates.
Yes.
You're simply a receptacle of things that other people think.
Yes.
So they've far more than that. The indigenous value people who are able to acquire directly knowledge from the other side, from spirit guides, from other knowledgeable beings. So they own the knowledge. The knowledge becomes internalized within them and is something that they themselves own. Here, if you come down here if you go to the places that I've been to in the Amazon and you say, well, I'm so and so and I have a PhD in botany and I have this and I have that, they're going to say, the shamans here are going to be like, so what? Okay.
Yeah.
What we give, and the reason for this
is they're laughed at, and that degree is not respected like it is in the Western culture. Okay.
Right. We give way to the indigenous here would say you give way too much credit to someone whose claim to fame is they sat in a classroom for so many hundreds of hours and pass tests so that they could recite the ideas and the thinking and thoughts of other men who themselves acquired their knowledge from other men who acquired that from other men who acquired that from, so that you get so many different, so you're so many degrees away from what they regard here as real knowledge, not fake knowledge, not contrived knowledge, real knowledge. Anyways, okay, so let's go back to the book. You've got a copy of it. You can show it. I don't have it here in front of me, but okay, let's go how this whole thing got started. I had a ayahuasca journey after I got back from.
Okay. Before we get into that, let's do a part 2, because I don't want these video interviews to go over long. So we'll do a part 2 and maybe a part 3. So let's come back and get the details and your experience in more expanded fashion in part 2 with Greg Caton of his Ayahuasca Vision Quest. Thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Thanks.